It's so fascinating because like the $1 million question in there is, did that mindset like in high school and before generate because life was a little bit hard, or was it genetics? Was it DNA? Was it was it the parenting style when you're younger than that? That's really...
Yeah, I love the nature versus nurture, or our leaders born or made.
All right, today's guest on the show, we have U.S. Navy SEAL and Commander Rorke Denver. Rorke spent 14 years serving as a Navy SEAL, leading special operations missions in Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa, and Latin America. He also led every phase of training for future SEALs, helping shape the next generation of America's elite warriors. Along the way, he earned a Bronze Star with Valor, graduated from Army Ranger School, and became known as one of the military's foremost voices on leadership, resilience, and high performance. Many people also know Rorke from the feature film Act of Valor, where active duty SEALs told a story rooted in real-world operations, or from his New York Times best-selling books, Damn Few and Worth Dying For, where he pulls back the curtain on what it truly takes to become and remain a warrior. So, Rorke, I'm excited you're here and excited to dive in.
Yeah, man, it's good to see you. I'm stoked as well.
I'm stoked as well. We were just kind of talking before we did the intro, and Mountain Tough, when we launched back in 2016, we knew that helping a backcountry hunter at that point in time, this was the guy that is going to go 7 days, Alaska, doll sheep. He's going to go by himself. He's going to go in with a 30-pound pack. If he's successful, he's going to come out with a 100-pound pack. And sometimes, like in the Rocky Mountain West, he's going to come out with that 100-pound pack 4 times because he's got to get that full elk off the mountain. And
yeah, buddy,
we knew that someone should train that person with a degree of eliteness like the military was using, or like the NFL or the NHL was doing, where it's like, let's train this individual specifically for the job requirements it's going to take to be successful. And in 2016, no one was doing that. And so that's how we started, was like breaking down the skill requirements and training to those skill requirements. But, before we did that, on the physical side, we were like, hey, look, really what is separating the elite backcountry hunters from the inconsistent is their mindset, is their mental toughness. And so since the beginning, even, on this show, we've really been obsessed with mental toughness and mindset and unpacking it and really looking for different tools we can put in our toolbox, because different things work for different people. So I'm just stoked to kind of dive into that with you, because I know that's been a big part of your life as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been following you guys, and I see, I love the the programmatic stuff, and the fact that you key in on that those go together. You can't really have one without the other. I mean, you could, but they won't function at max operating level if you don't have both, right? I mean, I think people might not really be aware that when the SEALs push our training to the level to which we push it, and other spec op units the same, it's not just so everybody's looking good on the beach, although there's plenty of joke calendars and pretty boys out there wanting to kind of show their stuff. It's you can't have your physical abilities be in question, because it'll break down your mental. I mean, it's like anybody that's ever been in a fight, if you've done jiu-jitsu, boxing, you see people that once they gas out to a certain point, it's like, just knock me out. Like, I don't even want to be here anymore, because they don't have that level of fitness. And then if you have that little fitness, it allows you then, in my mind, take the mental place or the mental strength to the highest level. But you need the mental strength to be willing to put in the effort to do the physical. So that they're just so intertwined, that I don't think you can, in many ways, separate them. I mean, it's separate work in some ways, but they feed each other. So I like the way you guys think about it, because you need both. And if you told me I could have one, I'd take a tough mindset over anything. But if the body's not able, that makes it tough too.
Yeah. And It's fascinating too, because we were talking also before we started recording, just your passion for young people, and the question pops up on my radar a lot too, because I have two young daughters, and I'm always thinking, like, how do we make our kids more mentally tough? How do we make this current generation of young people more resilient and more mentally tough? And that is a fascinating one, because we know that, like, going through really, really difficult things is what builds mental toughness.
Yeah.
And how are we going to allow and enable and push our kids through difficult things without screwing that up? But it is a factor to it. Is that something that you're kind of like seeing with this current generation of youth?
No, for sure. I mean, I think there's, I think, my age group down through you and probably a little behind that just grew up outdoors playing rough. Lights went on. We were out of the house. You came back to, hydrate off the, outdoor hose, and then went back to banging sticks and shooting at stuff and fighting each other and just playing rough. And then you came in, snaked out some chow, went to bed, and got back at it. And I think with the advent of phones and the amount of media and content and things that people are digesting, I think the foundational level of kind of outdoor experience, which from that are born so many life lessons, getting too high in a tree, too far out on that limb, taking risk, having it go bad. I used to really try and we have two girls as well. We really pushed them as kids, and more than pushing them, we just didn't jump in to help as much as I see a lot of people jumping in to help. So I thought I was going to have Child Protective Services called on me when at one point my daughter might've been 4 or something like that. And she's trying to zip her jacket. It's cold out, it's snowing out, and she's trying to zip her jacket, is having a hard time. We're at a playground, and I was like, you can do it. And this mom was like, oh, let me get in there. I was like, don't touch her jacket. She can watch. And, she's crying, upset, and the mom's looking at me like I got 2 horns sticking out of my head. And all of a sudden she zips up her jacket and smiles. I was like, carry on. You can do it. So do it. So I think asking a kid to maybe even do what's right out of reach is an important thing. And I think when they say can't, that's kind of a trigger word for me, where I'm like, oh, damn it. Now we're here until you do. Because you can. If you can't, I'll know whether you can or can't. And I'll rate that. But we did a summer trip this year. We were over in England and Scotland, and we did a hike in Scotland that kind of got away from us. It was a lot harder, longer than we thought. Weather came in sideways, and there was about a midway point on the hike, and it was worth getting to top for this phenomenal view. But about a midway point in the hike, I could tell, I was like, man, I'm not a big turnaround guy and go back to the car, but I'm like, we don't exactly have all the right perfect gear. And, that's not always, what's required. But I could tell both my daughters were right at a tipping point. Should we go back or not? And I was like, let's press a little bit further. And then we got to that spot where you could just see in them, nah, we're not stopping until this thing's done. Let's get to the top. And you're just like, and it's probably the number one thing we talk about from the trip, right? The hardest, most miserable, suck day is the day that's, thought of with the most positive reflection, not the good meals we got. So the lessons live in those hard spaces. And I think, people like you and I like that. We like being uncomfortable. We like being in hard places, because I think we also know that is where you then get to come home, kick your feet up, and enjoy a warm meal, a warm bed, and an easy afternoon, because you earned it, you pushed it. And I think there's a little too much, there's absolutely too much comfort baked into our world now, where people don't have to be uncomfortable. You could probably go start to finish and stay pretty physically comfortable. I'll caveat that with that I think suffering hits everybody on some level, and you can't escape it. So that's why I think I'm so for doing hard things, because hard things will find you. Whatever that looks like, it'll find you.
Yeah.
And if you put your head in the sand and avoid it, you're not going to be well equipped to deal with it. If you're the type of person that's, done hard things, you're like, I can do this too. So yeah, it's important. It's important.
10 years ago, we kicked off the Backcountry Preseason Prep program. It was a straightforward 80-day program built from thousands of hours testing with dedicated backcountry hunters. Now, with a full decade of real results, we've completely rebuilt it into Preseason Prep 3.0. We've added more aggressive metabolic conditioning, smarter load progression, tougher mental finishers, and even better programming to help hunters build that unbreakable grit for high country, heavy packs, and long days in rough terrain. It is still the same mission, getting you stronger and mentally tougher for the backcountry. It's just taken to the next level after 10 years of honest feedback from hunters in the field. Preseason Prep 3.0 launches May 4th. If you are serious about this fall, it is worth checking out. Mountain Tough Podcast listeners always get 6 weeks for free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do to take advantage of that is use the code MOUNTAINPOD at checkout. That's MTNPOD on your monthly membership. Yeah, and you get the chance to travel all over and talk to a lot of different demographics and people and organizations and teams. Where do you kind of land right now on optimism or pessimism around, are we going to kind of like walk into a mental toughness crisis, a mindset crisis with how comfortable life is right now? And you know, with technology, with AI, like we are reinventing ourselves so quickly from a technological perspective, where, you know, knowledge is doubling like every 13 hours right now.
Yeah.
How do you feel like we will, as Americans, handle that over the next 10 years?
Yeah, I'd say I live in a constant level of optimism because I think the alternative is a worse way to see the world. I'm also a realist, and I think we're reaping some of the things we've sowed. I mean, I think you are seeing, most of the protests I see going on, and this is all being pushed by media, social media, and I think it's an infinitesimally small part of our country, but it gets the max amount of noise. But you see people complaining about things that you're just like, wow, we are living good if this is what the complaint is. These are the things that we're focused on, levels of, I don't know. You see a kid with an iPhone, a car in the background, living a soft life, probably overweight because they're throwing food away, complaining about the world and how tough it is and how horrible America is. You're like, you might have lost your compass a little bit there. I can name a couple countries you can go to that will absolutely change your opinion on what tough is and what a hard life is. So no, I think we're probably further into a dangerous area than we may recognize. I mean, I think we are in a crisis when it comes to that. I think, as I say that, though, you're raising kiddos, I'm raising kiddos. I got a bunch of teammates and buddies that are raising good kids that are tough and, learning the right things, digesting the right information and pressing forward. So my hope is that just enough people will be doing that and kind of producing the right thing and pursuing the right thing. And it's always a pendulum, man. I think it swings, that classic, good times make soft men and soft times make hard men, and then hard men make easy times, and it just goes in this cycle. So we're somewhere on that continuum right now. I would say we're probably we've had such good time that we're softer than we should be. But it can turn on a dime and all of a sudden we could be, right in the fight of our lives. So I'm optimistic that I do think reality wins. So there's a whole bunch of what we digest that I just think is an absolute non-reality. When I hear people talking about how divided the country is, how much we're at each other's throats, we might be heading towards a civil war. I think that is 1,000% made up. I travel the world, and in particular the country, relentlessly. Almost everyone I meet is good. Almost everyone I sit next to on a plane, rub elbows with at a restaurant are good people, and I'd have a conversation with and would probably be happy to help me, and I'd help them. So it's weird how that narrative has gotten pushed. I'm sure there's a couple cities in the country where it's endemic, and probably a couple college campuses where it feels like it's all real.
Yeah.
I think it's total BS. And unfortunately, I think we're buying the BS. I think people are believing it. That's the scary point. And as you mentioned, AI, I think the way information is being processed and packaged is very, very dangerous because I think we're easy to manipulate.
Yeah. Psychological warfare and the algorithm is an unprecedented thing that we've never really had to deal with. And the way that it can divide someone over a lot of different ideologies and just continue to feed and feed and feed,
Yeah.
it can certainly make things look way worse than they actually are.
Yeah. I mean, even that window of time, call it 2 or 3 months ago, if you remember, when all the news was losing its mind about, remember, TSA lines, how bad the TSA lines were and getting through security was.
Mm-hmm.
I probably traveled 15 times, 15 flights in that window when it was at its apex. The lines were no different in probably 8 different airports than I've ever seen. I'm like, what is going on? And at my speaking events, I'd ask, I was like, is anybody hitting big lines? It'd be like 2 or 3 hands. I'm like, I bet you don't even travel all that often. I'm like, this is made up. I mean, I'm sure they got footage somewhere of what looks like a bad line, but who knows? They might have been remodeling that security thing and half of it shut down. I just didn't experience it. And it was one of those weird moments when you're kind of like, this is made up, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a traveler, and I'm telling you, I have not hit a line worse than any other line I've ever been in. And most people are talking to the same. So this is somebody's narrative that, who knows, maybe they're trying to, upset the Democrats, or the Democrats are trying to upset the Republicans, or somebody's trying to run a narrative that just is like, I'm not sure what the end state is, but it's being manipulated, because I think I have a pretty good pulse on at 15 some odd airports. It's been no different. So that's the part that's scary to me, is like where you pull the information. The more time I kind of spend, the more time I just want to be on a trout stream in a bass boat or in a blind or hiking up a mountain, man, because out there, you're just like, this all makes sense to me, man. What you get is what you put into it. I like the quiet. I like the peace. I like the, that trip we took overseas, both my daughters, we give them a choice. We're like, if you want to bring your phones, you got to pay for the daily rate, which overseas, whoever, AT&T Sprint gives you $15 a day, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they kind of did the math. They're like, dang, that's kind of real money. And so they left their phones. I mean, we got back from that trip, and both my bride and I asked our kids, like, do you feel better, worse, indifferent having not been on your phone for 2 weeks? Resolutely better. Resolutely better. And you're like, oh, I wish we could just get rid of this thing, man. I wish we could just.
Yeah. It's crazy too what humans are actually capable of when like the why is great enough. We just went up and helped a buddy, and he has a ranch here in western Montana. And on his ranch, there's a mountain ridge that separates one valley from the other valley. And we had to go up there to hang some steel targets for some long range shooting. So we're on this ridge, and he's like, hey, do you know what this trail is? And I said, no. And he's like, this is actually called Whiskey Trail, and it's from the Al Capone era during Prohibition.
Wow.
And he said that during Prohibition, the mob would produce and buy Canadian whiskey. Then that Canadian whiskey would come through Canada on horse-drawn wagons. It would come down through Glacier National Park area, down the Bob Marshall Wilderness.
Yeah.
And then it would arrive around north of Missoula. Then it would be hunkered up there and then distributed to the rest of the U.S. So you could be sitting in Chicago drinking Canadian whiskey that some guy drug on horses through grizzly country just to get you that bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, man.
So it was just another example to me of like humans are capable of some insane things when they need to be. Like when the why is great enough, what a human can accomplish is insane. No.
We can't be stopped. Yeah, for sure.
But that, I think, made me think when you were talking about not only mindset, but you were talking about like the TSA and what we're seeing on the news. It did make me also think that like part of creating an elite warrior or part of creating an elite human is also this like whole component of critical thinking. Like, can you think? Can you process information? Can you not just really follow? Can you come up with your own solutions based on what you're seeing? And that's such a great part of the outdoors and what it does for us, like a backcountry hunt where things are going to be thrown at you that you just cannot predict. And, the mountain and the storms don't care.
Yeah.
It it's not only building you physically and mentally, but it's building this whole like critical thinking and problem solving. Is that something you saw a lot, like in the teams with people that were successful versus not successful, people that made it versus didn't make it? Was this critical thinking component another big part of it? I've noticed that if the gear you're using isn't reliable, it's much easier to back off early and quit. GoRuck's products hold up, and at Mountain Tough, rucking has become an essential aspect of our programming. Rucking combines cardio and resistance training, burning up to 3 times more calories than regular walking while strengthening your joints with very little impact. It also boosts VO2 max, bone density, and it makes it an efficient, science-backed way to improve overall fitness. The Rucker 4.0 is purpose-built for rucking, featuring elevated plate pockets to keep weight high and stable reinforced construction. GoRuck is offering 20% off their products for Mountain Tough Podcast listeners. All you need to do is use code Mountain Tough Community. That's MTNTOUGH Community when checking out at GoRuck.com. All right, back to work.
Yeah, I think it's a blend. I mean, I think you can think it probably just comes down to what the narrative is that you're thinking and saying to yourself, right? So there's probably people that overthought evolutions or how much was in front of them and that hurt them. And then there's probably people that overthought it, but the narrative was such that it helped them frame out how they were going to attack that puzzle and work through the problem set. So yes, the ability to think and more than anything, just perform under duress. The ability to kind of compartmentalize, your suffering vice the suffering of those around you. Are you the type of person that's like, hey, I'm going to help the people with me, not only look out for myself, and then as a team, we're going to do things better? Then you're going to be perfectly designed to be in. We call the SEAL teams the teams. The teams is the most important part. A lot of people forget about that or don't pay attention to it. If I ask at a party if someone, I wouldn't say, is that guy a SEAL? If I was at a party, didn't know him, I'd be like, is that guy a team guy? And you're like, that's not by accident. The team is the thing. You want to make yourself unpopular in SEAL training, be the person that ducks boat. Like everybody's carrying that boat with their head. You duck your head to not carry your part of the load. You are not long for that job because you'll get wrung out by the instructors or you'll get killed by your peers. Cause it's like, yo, we all got to carry this load together, man. Get under that boat and let's work together. The critical thinking part, I think, in varying degrees, is just required. I would say as much as anything, it's a problem solving mindset, which is maybe the same thing. Like you're on a hunt, things go wrong, you got to solve a problem. There's a problem that's presented. Are you the type of person that can take a beat, take a breath, not let it overwhelm them, and start working the problem? Because I had teammates that were legitimately genius level Rhodes scholars from the greatest colleges in the country, that were great problem solvers and great thinkers. And we had dudes that, probably couldn't spell SAT, but guess what, man? They grow up on some ranch, some farm. Dad was a pipe fitter, worked their whole life. And you're like, man, if this truck breaks, I sure hope Jimmy's here. Cause I don't know where the carburetor is. I'm not even sure if this car's carbureted. I'm not an engine guy. So it's like, it's very cool how these different personalities and kind of skill sets come together. The binding force is let's work this problem, do it together, take care of each other, and just win the day. And the baseline of all baselines is just to never give up. It sounds so trite and so simple, but I remember when young guys used to ask me for kind of mentorship that were going into the SEAL program, I actually had kind of like probably like a 2-pager that I saved. And then I'd put some notes in specifically for them, but it talked about the Spartans, the samurai, and, art of war and all these cool things. And now if you ask me, I just say, don't quit. Because it pretty much captures everything else I would have said in that longer diatribe. I mean, if you literally don't give up, you got a really good chance of seeing the finish line. If your body doesn't betray you, or you just don't fail an evolution because you can't process the information, you're probably going to see the finish line. And it's that simple. I mean, that whole program lives up here, not here, And when I see elite level athletes, you can just tell it's the mind, not the body. I mean, yes, there's gifts there, but any elite level performer, I can't remember who the person was. I'm sure you've seen it. One of the human performance coaches, I'm not trying to steal this from him. I'm saying, talked about kind of goals versus process or systems, right? It's like every person at the final of the 100-meter dash of the Olympics has the same goal. I
Yeah.
mean, of course, everyone wants to get to the line first.
Yeah.
Who did the work or built the systems and had the mindset to do what was needed to do to go fastest that day. And that's the good stuff. I don't I think when I was younger I thought goals were the thing. Now I look a little bit more about, okay, if this is what I want to achieve, what's the work that needs to be done to achieve it?
Mhm.
And once you identify that, then we find out if you're willing to pay the price and do the work. And in many ways, I say happily, most people aren't. I mean, I want good things for the country, but I like the fact that I know I can outwork most people. You can beat me on nuance, you can beat me on skill, you won't beat me on effort.
Man, it's so much a game of like attrition, especially when you take that principle and apply it to like the business world or entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It's there's not many people that'll hang if you're just still in there and you just never give up on that dream of yours.
I mean, that's it, man. And I mean, the number of entrepreneurs you talk to that the thing that worked was their 27th attempt,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be on the same thing or radically different things. They just were like, all right, packing up on that one, or I got to adjust this to get it to where it needs to be. Or hey, moving on, I'm going to keep going. But the ones that make it are the ones that just didn't stop. That's it.
Yeah, it's the 10-year overnight success that most of them
Exactly.
are.
Exactly right. Everybody's like, oh, it's so awesome how that worked out for you. You're like, there's a little more that went into it.
When you were kind of in that high school age, what were the things tugging at your heart that made you go in this direction?
Yeah, I didn't think about military until my senior year of college, but I would say there were markers and things that I think if you talk to, it's funny. I reconnected with a buddy of mine that I was friends with from kind of seventh grade through my senior year of high school. We went our separate ways. Brilliant guy, been very successful in this life. We're good athletes together. We just ended up picking different sports. But he told me a story. His house was kind of the house where everybody congregated and came together and we'd play. He had the pool and the basketball court and we just all play and goof off. And he told me, this was just last week. He told me, we had like some like Nerf swords, like he got a pair of Nerf swords,
Yeah.
and we all started fighting with these things. And he and I kind of ended up in the last match. He's a big dude, I was a bigger dude, for high school kids, and we just went at it. But I don't remember the fight. I mean, I kind of remember that we did it, but I guess he came inside after that, and his dad said, "I'm telling you right now, watch what that kid does." Rorke has something else inside. That dude is not designed to lose. That guy will fight. I've never seen a kid fight like him. And I was just like, really? And he's like, yeah, man, I'll never forget it. My dad was like, that guy's a killer. There's something different going on there. And I always felt like on every team, pretty much every sport team was on, and I was gifted in sports, and I also had tremendous work ethic. Like if I played a sport, I guarantee you I was putting in double the hours of almost anyone else in that sport. And that probably went through, I think, through college. But I mean, the reason I got to a Division I level of athletics, and I think most of the guys that got the team were the same. I mean, some guys were just truly so talented they could play anywhere. But most people was like, yeah, they spent more time on the weekend throwing, taking shots, playing catch, picking up balls, just out there doing it.
Yeah.
Than the people that didn't. And it ended up becoming like time and effort and duration and reps as opposed to just skill and talent. Now, when you get to the elite level, it ends up becoming both. But I think as a young man, I always liked playing rough. I really didn't have a lot of quit in me. I had a lot of confidence when it came to sports, and that grew into a lot of other things in my life. And then I saw some rough things between some people my mom dated, and then some family members with too much drinking. So I chose very early not to drink. I think that was a really good choice for me. It's not for everybody, but not drinking was big for me. And then going through different peer groups, like lacrosse is a kind of hard partying sport. And I think in some ways playing that sport and not drinking was a little bit of a set apart. It was just like I could keep my focus on what I wanted to keep my focus on. I got to the SEAL teams. They're like, well, you're going to drink for sure. All those guys are lunatics. I'm like, I'm sure they could get me if they wanted to, but they're not going to force me into anything I'm not going to want to do. And I never drank, and but I never made it I never preached about it. It was just the right thing for me. But I just always wanted to get that highest level of kind of team. I really like the team. I'm actually a pretty introverted person, so I like a lot of solo time. But nothing has been more fun in my life really than being on a team. I love being on a team. And so my senior year of college, I loved to read. I was reading a book on Winston Churchill, something about that like military service where the spark came. And then I read a bunch. There's very little about the SEALs, but I heard they had the highest attrition rate. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So, yeah.
It's so fascinating because like the $1 million question in there is, did that mindset like in high school and before generate because life was a little bit hard, or was it genetics? Was it DNA? Was it was it the parenting style when you're younger than that? That's really...
Yeah, I love the nature versus nurture, or our leaders born or made. It's not a cop out when I say this, or I don't think it is, or I don't mean it to be. I really do think it's both. I think you can learn leadership, and then I think there are people that are born with some level of draw, magnetism, confidence, the desire to put their hand up and say, I'll take charge and lead. So I think it can be a real combination of both. I did not have, I think, I think I saw some rough things. There's no way I could describe my childhood as rough. I had great parents that were very thoughtful and a cool balance. My mom was very artistic and big picture kind of dreamer. And my dad was very disciplined and analytical and focused. And so I got to marry those two into, I think, a good combination to where I believe things were possible. And I also was like, but I know what I'm gonna have to do to work to get there. So I think it's a lot of those things. And I don't know. I think that X factor is real. I think when you get around people that really kind of have something extra, it. And look, you get to do this job, and so you get to sit with a bunch of people where you're like, yeah, that cat was different, or has a little something else, and when I look at the team now, when I look at the SEAL team, when I look at, my college team, I was like, yeah, those boys were a little bit different. They had a little bit more edge, a little something else to them that just got them over. And, they went through the same program everybody else went through, but there's some reason they found the path, found the kind of connection to it, or whatever, motivation, drive was required to see it through to the finish line. And then more important than that, a lot of times we terminate the conversation on SEAL grit and toughness with training. It's like you make it the team. It's not like you make it the team and that's where things get easy. You make it the team. Now you got to prove yourself to a bunch of people that all did the same thing, now have skill, time, expertise, experience over you, and making mistakes has a high cost. So it's constant drive to kind of, keep heading forward and getting to the, highest level of mastery you can get to take care of your job and the people around you. But I really think it's a little bit of both. I was very lucky in parents. I was very lucky in mentors and was aware of that. And I think I just always was willing to pay a toll to get where I wanted to go. Like if somebody would rather take a day off because they want to take it easy, that's one more day of training I'm getting over you. When I was in that competitive level, it's just like, look, you're taking a day off. I'm not going to take that day off.
Getting ahead.
Yeah.
For more than a century, America's sportsmen and women have led the way in paying for the restoration of wildlife, conserving habitat, and investing in the future of our natural world. This is a legacy built not on what we take ourselves, but on what we give back. That's the nature of conservation, paying it forward for the next generation. This is the reason Mountain Tough is a proud partner of Wild Sheep Foundation, an organization committed to keeping and putting wild sheep on the mountain. If you're not already a member, learn more today at wildsheepfoundation.org. We all have, like in any career or any like endeavor, especially ones we've been in for a while, we always have highs and lows, and generally there's like a season or a chapter that was like the X factor, and it was the sweet spot. It was like everything was fulfilling in a way that we were kind of we were working at our optimal best. Your time at the teams, was there a season or chapter that you would describe as like the highest of high for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Probably two different times, and they're interesting because they're so radically different. My first SEAL platoon, so you leave SEAL training, you either go to the East Coast teams back in Virginia Beach or you stay there in San Diego. I went East Coast teams. This was pre 9/11, and the rub was kind of like, and it's total BS, but it was like, yeah, if you want to like play volleyball and surf for PT and frost the tips on your hair, you stay West Coast. And if you want to be a hairy chested frogman, you go East Coast. I was like, all right, I'm going East Coast. Total, just trash talking. No part of that was true. But the East Coast was rough in that it was colder water in the winter. It was hotter in the summer. It's not as great a place to live. And so you're just kind of really just immersed in the team in a way that I think the West Coast teams are a little more fragmented. It's a better place to live and people spread out to where they can afford homes and things like that. Both sides, I spent a lot of time on both coasts, actually more on the West Coast, but the East Coast that time was kind of really where I wanted to be. But my first platoon at SEAL Team 4, in that era, teams were responsible for geographic parts of the world. So my team was responsible for Central and South America. So we're kind of a jungle warfare platoon. That platoon was unbelievable. There's nothing to rate it against other than other platoons. And it just felt like, dude, at time of war, break glass and grab those boys right there. I mean, that platoon should have gone to war. And there just wasn't a war on. 9/11 actually happened when that platoon was deployed, but unfortunately we had responsibility in Southcom in that Southern Command. So other dudes kind of got to go to the war first. I got plenty. Little did I know how much I was going to go see. But that platoon's overall performance was absolutely stunning. It was just, and a lot of those guys are legends. I mean, there's a bunch of those dudes I can name that they're recognizable names. They're true legends of the community. Truly out of that team. And really all those teams, if you think about it, they then grew through their careers and ended up being the guys that were over at Dev Group in the top tier missions at the best timing level. So that team was almost incomparable in my experience. And then the final team I took to Iraq, this was '06, same time when Jocko and Chris Kyle and all those guys were there. We were sister task units just in different parts of the country. That team was special too. I mean, it's weird being the platoon commander at that point because you're not really one of the boys. When you're at that first team I was in, that was when I was a brand new ensign. I kind of got to be one of the boys. The officer in charge let me do that. He's like, hey, carry the heavy gun today. Go do the breaching with the boys. You kind of earn your reputation as a leader, but you get to learn to be a frogman in that round. Once you become platoon commander, man, you're writing the checks, you're building the schedule, you're making the big calls, but you just aren't as much a part of that team. So it's weird to have led one of the best teams on a historic deployment, but sort of feel like, man, I'm the adult now. Like I'm the guy that's got to say yes, no, or hold people accountable. But that team and that deployment, there's pretty good argument as a very small piece with all the infantry divisions, the big Marine units, everybody that was there, that really broke the back of the insurgency. That window, 2006 into 2007, a real shift took place out there where it's like we brought a lot of heat on the bad guys. It kind of broke up networks in a way that they're like, these guys aren't playing. Yeah. Yep.
What about a lowest to low point in the teams?
Man, I don't feel like I had any super lows. I would say I had one, even when I was in a spot where I didn't want to be, and this is a total life lesson for anyone young listening, or certainly anybody that's listening that's in a job where they don't want to be right now. I came back from the platoon, that first one I told you about that I love so much. I was too junior to take over a team on my own, and I was kind of too senior to stay with the team I was with. At that point, we still had our equipment, gear, and some of our fast boats on what was called an ARG, an amphibious readiness group, which had the big deck, which looks like a carrier, doesn't have the catapult, so it's got Harrier jump jets, lots of helicopters, tons of Marines, very, very lethal battle group out there in the world that could attack targets anywhere that had a body of water or a close line that you could hit. I got stuck out there. The team actually got to go do cool things. I was basically there, me, a chief, and a comm guy, stuck on a regular Navy ship, floating around, just The SEAL acronym, sleep, eat, and lift. That's all I was doing. I mean, I came off that boat. My XO was like, dude, you've been juicing, man. I hope you don't pass a piss test. I was like, no, I've been lifting three
Just on
hours
a
a day
boat.
and eating. I got nothing else to do. But even there, being on a regular one, it gave me a huge appreciation for the regular Navy, which I tip my hat to. Those ship deployments are like, awesome, and also basically penal colonies out there at sea. I mean, it's rough when you're not getting a lot of time to go ashore. But we got lucky out there because Iraq kicked off. So we were kind of in there for some of the initial stuff with Iraq. And then Liberia on the Ivory Coast of Africa fell apart. So our team got to go in there, evacuate the American citizens out of the embassy. And then we did really cool hydrographic reconnaissance and went ashore there. Couple famous Marine dudes, really good dudes on those teams that did some awesome work in on that coast. Bunch of famous SEALs were kind of on those missions. And those were like real frogmen. I mean, no kidding, swimming around, doing hydras at night, sharks in the water, crocs everywhere, dead bodies everywhere. I mean,
Dang.
it was insane. Cannibalism in and around Monrovia was absolutely mental. And so I guess even on deployment where I was at my lowest, where I felt like I was going to miss it, good things happened, and I think it lives with that. Hey, if you get dealt a bad hand, play it to the bone. Play your best hand that you can play, keep your attitude up, and opportunities will present themselves. And if you can grab hold of them, grab hold of them. I got lucky in that window. But I'd say that was, as far as a job, that was a rough period of time, just felt like stuck on a boat. But I got to do cool things amidst it.
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild because just listening to you talk, it is so obvious from hearing you and hearing so many others that we know that like one of the keys to happiness is community, but what we also know is like it's really fulfilling when you're in a close brotherhood.
Yeah.
And when you're in a close brotherhood and you're doing hard things together, it's kind of like, it continues to get better and better as you build this system. But then for you and many others, at a point that comes to an end and you go out into the civilian world and the automatic brotherhood and the automatic doing hard things goes away.
Yeah.
And for so many people that transition is very difficult.
Yeah.
But also for so many people that never were in the military, they just don't have that or never have had that.
Yeah.
How did you kind of like navigate that first year or two coming out of the teams?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, people really do. A lot of guys find themselves rudderless and kind of out in an abyss, and it can crush people. I got very lucky in my transition. I think a couple things were at play. One, I kind of fell into literally speaking and doing a job. I wrote a book. That book was successful. It opened up the door to do some speaking. That speaking turned out to be lucrative, not at first, but enough to be like, wow, I can easily get out of the Navy. I know I'm keeping food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's grown from there and been great. But that kind of gave me a transition where at least I wasn't stressed about, okay, what am I going to do next? Didn't know I'd be doing it as long as I did, but it, gave me some breathing room. So that was a gift, certainly. I also think just kind of psychologically, I've always looked at every phase of my life as just a chapter of this story that I get to continue to write and keep writing until I'm out of gas and I'm called to the next life. And I never dwelled on one in such a way that it owned me. I just don't hang my hat on any one phase of my life. Like when I played lacrosse in college at Syracuse, we won 2 national championships when I was there. We were in the hunt every year. I got to compete at the highest level. There's a bunch of those guys I talk to occasionally at a reunion or something. You're like, man, that was the pinnacle. I mean, that was as good as it got for a lot of dudes. And I'm not saying that disrespectfully. There's plenty of people that most people move on to great life, but that was kind of like the top thing they did. I went from that to the SEAL teams. From the SEAL teams, I've gone on to do things where it's like, man, every chapter has been interesting and exciting. And being a parent is about 10x more exciting than anything I've ever done, about twice as hard. And so that's all a constant adventure. So I've never felt like just kind of poking around and there's nothing worth sinking my teeth into. And that's certainly mindset, that's something you need to do for yourself. But I didn't have a lot of hanging on. I mean, I think as an officer, I'd promoted out of doing all the fun stuff. And so I'd kind of gotten the point in my career, like I'm looking at computers from here on out. I mean, I'm going to get to run a team. If I become the force commander, I'll make great decisions. We need great people doing it. And there's great people doing that. Some of my best friends are putting on Admiral stars right now. It just wasn't for me. I really loved being in the troops, running operations, being with the boys, and kind of doing the tactical side of things. So when that ended, I knew I'd be good at the other stuff. It just didn't feed me as much. So it was time for something new. For me, the transition I can say was easy, but great things happened amidst that too. You know, I mean, I was doing a little bit of consulting work with SOG Knives. So was Steven Ranella. All of a sudden, SOG's like, well, you guys should meet. Next thing you know, I'm going to bear hunt with Steve. You know, most people's first hunt is not a bear hunt in the Alaska range with Steve Ranella. You're like, well, I sort of jumped to the front of the line on this one, you know? So now all of a sudden I got buddies at Vortex and First Light and those guys, you know, mentoring me through the hunting space. You're like, well, that was kind of a good deal. And so now I love to hunt and, you know, chase game, and that feeds a lot of the things that I miss from my time in the teams. You know, people that I don't think people realize that hunt, particularly they do big country hunting, man, dude, you're doing exactly what we did in Afghanistan. You just happen to be shooting something that's delicious. We were doing the same thing. It was like looking at weather, terrain, what gear, what boots, what gun am I going to run? What's going to happen when we get there? How are we going to, you know, bivouac and keep our time? Do we have enough fuel? Do we have enough, you know, energy and resources to do what we're doing? And then hit a target and get back a reload, do again. Hunting seasons feel like that to me to this day. You know, that's the way I look at them. So that stuff really feeds me, man. So I've been super lucky. We're talking together. We'll probably talk after this and talk hunts and send pics and goof off. You know, I mean, it's just as like I've been very lucky in the people I've met. And I think in the end, when anybody's honest about it, that's the whole game, right? It's the relationships and the people you get to spend time with. And I've just had sublime friends and continue to grow more, man. I'm lucky in that space.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Mountain Op supplements keep you going steady. I've personally been on their Yeti pre-workout for clean energy without jitters, and their Hydrate to stay topped off during long days when you need those electrolytes. Creatine and protein are a staple for me for building and bouncing back. Plus, they have no junk, just real fuel. It's simple, reliable stuff that helps you push when it counts. Get 20% off Mountain Ops supplements at mountainops.com using code MOUNTAINTOUGH. That's MTNTOUGH. All right, now back to work.
It's interesting. In the Bible, the second shortest verse is remember Lot's wife. So there's only one verse in the whole Bible that's shorter than that. And so Lot's wife, there's 170 women mentioned in the Bible, but there's only one that the Bible tells us to remember. So it's like, why do we need to remember Lot's wife? And Lot's wife got called into something new, but she wouldn't give up on the previous thing. She wouldn't cut ties. She wouldn't walk away.
Yep.
And so she became kind of 1 foot out, 1 foot in on the new thing. And she also had a lot of false nostalgia of the old thing. So if we're like stuck on an old thing, even though we're supposed to step into this new thing, we can think about how great the old thing was, and our memories can actually be false, and we can actually make them sound better than they were.
Yes.
So it's so wild that like that is a verse included in the Bible to remind us that when these new chapters open and these new doors open that we're supposed to walk through.
That's right.
We have to walk through them fully. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck between two trapeze bars, just pulling you apart.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
How have you been able to put some of that like brotherhood and physical fitness back in your life since you got out?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I'd say in many ways I never stopped. You know, I mean, I think for people whom the physical, you know, it's such a baseline of what you are, your mental health. Like I never need to take a drug. I'll never need to take a pill to get my spirit up. The cool thing is now the research is surfacing. They're like, dude, going on a PT, a ruck, or a hump looks like it's better than any antidepressant any company has ever generated. So
Yeah.
it's like the science is there, the data is there.
Yeah.
None of us need to know that. When you go crush yourself with some kettlebells and a heavy ruck, and I train jiu-jitsu. I'm not as good as a lot of the famous SEALs that are doing it, but I mixed it up this morning with a dude bigger than me, and we tried to tear each other's heads off and had a ball with it, laugh through it. Then it's like, cool, I get to start my day. So the physical never stopped. Definitely had those weird moments where I played lacrosse years later and was like, oh, I am not as fast as I once was. I can't go as quick, and a lot of things hurt a lot more than they once did. But my body's been unbelievable, and it's kind of, I don't know, durability and sticking with me. So that part never changed. And then I'd say I've been good with the team and the brotherhood point in that I probably have a core of about 5 or 6 SEAL teammates, both enlisted and officer, that I've done really well staying in touch with. We give each other a hard time. We text streams, beat each other up. We try and get together and go hunt, fish, goof off. I've got an amazing shout out to my buddy Gary in Tennessee. He's got a beautiful duck hunt camp out there. He's has allowed me to pick 2 teammates, bought their plane tickets to go duck hunting every January with him. So I get to have a rotation of dudes to come in and just, fellowship and be together and, tell jokes, goof off, hit ducks, miss ducks, have a good time together. And I try and orchestrate a few of those a year to get the boys together. So I've been really good in staying in touch with it. I'm not much of a reunion guy. Like, the big reunions are not things that feed me. A lot of the kind of, the associations and those type things don't feed me. And I don't say that for some guys, it's a great connection and super important. I'm not knocking it. Like I said, I'm a little more insular when it comes to my time. I really want to be with my family. I want to be working. I want to be training, or with a very small crew of folks. So, I've got a great small crew, and I think that's kept me accountable and connected to that cool stuff. I would say business-wise, we talked a little bit before we kind of got rolling today, that sort of figuring out what that next ridgeline is, the next thing, and whether that's talking to youth or, men in so much. I got 2 girls, so I like kind of making sure I'm casting the net for everybody. But there is a component to brotherhood that I think a lot of people have never experienced. And, building something that could be that is key, because I do think it's vitally important. I mean, I can tell when I've spent too much time on my own. My bride can too. She's like, you need to go
duck hunting,
goof off with a friend, or go do something, man. You're getting a little twitchy.
Yeah, there is like a men's loneliness, epidemic right now, and men are starving for that brotherhood. They're just not playing softball together, bowling together like they once were, which is creating some problems.
It is.
Well, man, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for jumping on. It's been great
I enjoyed it.
Get to know you a little bit more and hear some of your story. And
for sure.
And I'm excited for this next phase for you. I think it's going to be awesome. Wherever you put your head at is going to be good. And I think anything that you're doing, whether it's for youth or men, you're going to change a lot of lives.
No, I appreciate that. Big time.
Well, thank you, and appreciate you jumping on the show.
No, let's do it. Let's get a hunt in, man. We'll put it together.
Awesome.
All right.